Welcome to our fourth webinar on the series Nature Inclusive Design Solutions. And this time we're going to be featuring the Rich North Sea Toolbox, which is a tool to map NID solutions. So before we start, and while we keep people in, some housekeeping rules, very simple. If you're speaking, please turn on your cameras. It would be great to see your faces. If you're not speaking, please keep your mic muted. And if you have any questions, please, you can raise your hand or ask them in the chat, and the team is going to be answering them as they come. What to expect from today's webinar? Very simple. We will do an introduction to the toolbox. If you do not know what this is about, you will know in a couple of minutes. Then we will have a case study of how to add one of the projects to this toolbox. And for this, we have our colleagues from Concrete that they will introduce themselves in a second. And last but not least, you will have the chance to have some questions, to raise some questions to the speakers. Now, before we start the webinar itself, allow me a couple of words to introduce the Offshore Coalition for Energy and Nature. So this webinar series is organized in the context of OCEAN, the Offshore Coalition for Energy and Nature. OCEAN brings together about 50 organizations from across Europe, including grid operators, the wind industry, and civil society organizations, to try to accelerate the deployment of renewable energy infrastructure hand in hand with the protection of marine ecosystems. Now, today, we have two coalitions, one in the North and the Baltic Seas, and another one in the Mediterranean and the adjacent Atlantic waters. And RGI, the organization that I represent, is a convener and moderator of both coalitions. Just to have a glimpse of our members, this is OCEAN in the North and the Baltic Seas. And this is MedOcean, the members of MedOcean. That's all from my side. Now, our speakers for today, we have a great panel. So first, we will hear from Eline van Onselen, the project lead nature-friendly offshore energy at the North Sea Foundation. That is the organization that is co-leading the Rich North Sea program. And secondly, we will have Phil LeBlanc, who is the business development director at Concrete, who is going to be introducing, trying to include one of the projects to the toolbox. And I'm going to be today your moderator. I am Denis Aguilar-Bellamy, coordinator for offshore energy and nature at the Renewables Green Initiative, RGI for short. Who is in the audience? We have a lot of different stakeholders in this webinar. We have, of course, the wind developers, TSOs, and the environmental and climate NGOs that are composed by OCEAN, but we also have academia, we have supply chain companies, we have consultancies, service providers, governmental bodies, and other different stakeholders. Excellent. So without further ado, let's start our presentation, and I will pass the word to my colleague Eline to walk you through the toolbox. And Eline, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Denis. It was a very nice introduction. Hi and welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to present the toolbox to all of you today. So my name is Eline. I'm a marine ecologist and I'm working for the Rich North Sea. And for the last 3 years, I was part of the development team for our toolbox. And before I dive into this, I would really, I'm very curious to know who is in the audience and what you already know about the toolbox. If you've ever heard about it, if you've maybe used it already, or if you've never heard about it. So we have a poll.
You can fill it in right now. I believe that this is also possible to be filled in later.
Well, you should do it now, actually. Otherwise, I'm going to spoil it, and then you will have heard of the toolbox.
Are we getting results? Great.
Yeah. Very curious about this.
Yeah, so the results are coming in. 59 results so far. So this I cannot see it because I'm sharing the presentation, but we will give it a couple of seconds. And then how is it looking? People know the toolbox. Most of the participants no, actually. So I would say not all the participants know the toolbox, which is a great opportunity to actually you to walk us through. So, Elena,
Great.
in general, we have 34 are familiar with the toolbox, 15% have used the toolbox, and about 52% have never heard of it, don't know anything about it. We'll learn everything about it today.
Great. Well, that's really good to hear, because I don't want to be preaching for the choir here. So great. Thank you for filling that in. Before we dive really into the toolbox, I will give you a short introduction into the Rich North Sea, who we are and what we do. In 2019, so it's so long ago, but it's so short ago as well, the Rich North Sea program was initiated. And it was initiated by the North Sea Foundation and the Dutch Nature and Environment Foundation, so Natuur en Milieu. And the program was funded by the Dutch Postal Code Lottery. It was originally funded for 5 years, but as was soon made clear, our work was actually not done after 5 years. And additional funding was also found to continue our work. So that's why we are still here. So what is this work that the Rich North Sea has done so far? Well, as you all probably know, offshore wind farms offer opportunities for enhancing biodiversity. For example, by adding hard substrates, and in many cases also excluding bottom disturbance. And in this case, both soft sediment habitats and hard substrate communities are actually given the opportunity to develop. And the Rich North Sea wants to build on this opportunity and really to learn about and improve biodiversity in offshore wind farms, and embedding nature into the policy of offshore wind farms. The program started with partnering up with stakeholders from the wind industry, but also from infrastructure, for example, to create offshore nature enhancement projects together. Our motto is really to start learning by doing instead of waiting for things to happen. And I think if you click on the slide now, there we go. This is our partnering of Natuur en Milieu and the North Sea Foundation. And together we created the Rich North Sea. And as we partnered up with industry, we also partnered up with the government, with science institutes, and a lot of other different partners you can see here, to really create a lot of cool projects. Because many of the stakeholders that you see here, they were very eager to learn together with us. Let's go to the next one. So what did we do? 5 projects in offshore wind farms were set up, ranging from tagging lobsters to placing artificial reefs, and from monitoring water replenishment holes in wind turbines to installing living oyster material. And we also made use of an offshore test site where the rules are a little bit less strict than in a wind farm, and things like diving, for example, are permitted. We also work together with partners on setting up a breeding line for European flat oysters, which is actually a key species when it comes to North Sea biogenic reef ecosystems. It's very short. If you want to know more, please go to the toolbox later. Go to the next one. So our findings. We, of course, after working on all of these projects, as well as on other related projects, we learned a lot about nature enhancement in wind farms in the North Sea. And of course, we learned about how nature responds to our interventions, but we also learned a lot about, for example, permitting, monitoring, working in an offshore industrial environment. So all of these things that normally an NGO or another company wouldn't share openly. But from the start of our program, we pledged to share all of our findings, so including all of these practical findings, in an open access online environment. And we wanted to create a space not only for our own findings, but also for others to share their findings as well. And then on top of that, we did not only want to share the positive results of our project, but we also wanted to share the things that didn't work. So our failures, of which we can actually learn quite a lot, and the practical information surrounding these projects. And that's actually how the toolbox was born. And then we have a short video for you to watch.
Hello, humans. We're getting the gang back together for a big opportunity. A big score.
I do some water filtering.
I'm the builder.
I'm a big deal in food chains.
And me? I know talent when I see it. That's why we need you. Our neighborhoods have gone downhill. But the North Sea is rich with opportunities for generational health. The key is in nature enhancements. I'm talking about clean, healthy seas, the kind that loves us back. You ever been loved by the sea? You will now. The Rich North Sea Toolbox is your first stop for underwater nature enhancements. It's a knowledge hub where you'll find science in action, inspiring projects, and a vision of the future. Are you ready to dive in? We sure are. So grab your wetsuit, strap on your thinking cap, and get into the toolbox.
Great. I always love this because as an NGO, we're also always so serious, and having a fun video like this really lightens the mood a little bit.
Absolutely. It's a lovely, lovely video. And also, I'm so happy that you mentioned, Celine, the point about sharing the failures. I think that this is super important, sharing the failures and the learning. So we're really, really looking forward to dive into the details of the toolbox. So
Yes.
you will continue, and then I stop sharing my screen. So you are, hopefully you are able to share yours. And yeah, let's dig into the details.
Yeah. I'm hoping you can now see the toolbox. And I will actually make you guys small, so I won't be able to see you. So if there's anything that's not going well, you have to shout. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'll take you through the toolbox now. This is actually the toolbox as it is online right now, so you can all go through it later as well. We'll give you the link. But I'll guide you through it, and I'll also explain why we made some decisions that we of how the toolbox was made and why we chose certain aspects. So we're starting here with the homepage. And when we were designing the toolbox, we did this together with Accenture Song. We had to make a few decisions on what we wanted the viewers to see. And we had, of course, a lot of wild ideas, but unfortunately, we didn't have the time or the means to carry out all of them. So we started a design thinking process. And this means that our main focus was the future user of the toolbox, of the website. So we held interviews, we set out questionnaires, we held workshops to really find out who exactly would want to use the toolbox and what they would like to find there. Because initially we thought about the toolbox for sharing our own ideas, but sharing your ideas is only relevant when people want to know about your ideas. So we really started to think about the user perspective. And in the end, this made us focus on three main features, as can actually be seen here on top in the ribbon, but also down here, we have a section on nature enhancements, a section with projects, and a section with practical information. And I'll go through each of these in turn. And of course, the homepage also houses a general introduction of the toolbox, a general introduction about what is nature enhancement, and of course, in the end, you will also find a contact button. I'll go up. I can imagine if I move, it might be a little bit fast, so feel free to note down any questions, and we'll have time for answering them later. So we'll start with the nature enhancement page. You can actually click here on this button. You can also go to the top and click on the nature enhancement button there if your Zoom doesn't block it, so I'll use this one. There we go. This will bring us to this really nice visual. This is actually, or it's supposed to be, a wind farm in the North Sea. And here the viewer gets the opportunity to click on different buttons. So for example, here we have the button for standalone structures. We have a button for wind turbines and platforms. And we have a button for scour and cable protection. So let's click on one as an example. We'll take, let's take this one, the standalone structures. In this case, once clicked, a pop-up will appear with information on the type of nature enhancement or nature inclusive design. And in this case, a standalone structure, this is something that is not attached to the infrastructure itself. So it's not attached to the wind turbine, it's not attached to a platform, but it can function without them. And then if I click on the View Solutions button, a new page opens. And on this page, I can read more about this type of nature enhancement. Oh, there we go. And some general information for each of these different types. We also give an example of a species which could actually benefit from these kinds of interventions and represent ideas for standalone structures. And some general parameters so you can actually compare them a little bit. Here there's another button which says View Products, but I'll get to that later, so hold on for that for now. If I go down further, we also have some example projects. So if you're interested in these types of measures, you can also click on these as an example to see what sort of projects are already there. Then I'll go back to this View Products. Here, way down, we also have a button, the Get Started button. It will lead to the same page as the View Products button. And here on top in the ribbon, we also have the View Products button. So I'll click on that now. And this will actually lead us to our library of products. To give you a sort of an honest view of what we have discovered, we have decided to only add products which also have a project page. So it doesn't become a place to really easily advertise your products, but it becomes a place where you can find inspiration and you can really dive deeper into these products because all of them will also have a project page. You can actually scroll through these different products, but you can also use here, for example, the filtering options. So now, because we came through the standalone structures, this is already a filtered option. I can delete this, and I can also click on anything else I would want to search on. Let's put it on standalone structures. And then I can also use the search bar here. So for example, if I'm looking for reef cubes, I'll fill that in, and then it should be there. There's also an opportunity to use the pin button. So if you find something that you think is really very interesting, you could pin it, and then it'll show up on top next time you open the website. It also has a link to the producer. And of course, it has a link to any projects it's used in. Okay. Let me see where I want to go next. Okay, we'll go back to our visual of the nature enhancement. Because next to the nature enhancement options, you can also click on two others, which is actually monitoring and species. I will start with the species first, because this is actually another way to get to the same end result. I will show you. We also get a pop-up here. And if I click on the View Solutions, it'll bring me to a page with a selection of North Sea animals. we have made this selection based on interest in them and projects we've had so far. This is definitely not a complete list, but it gives you an insight into what's possible. And then here on top in the search bar, I can click on one of the species. So for example, if I'm interested in European flat oyster, this brings me to a page with more information about the oyster and how we can help the oyster in nature enhancement projects. And then it also shows again the different types of nature enhancements which you would be able to use for this species. And then if I click on the view products, which I will not do right now, I will again go back to the library. So this is basically the same information you will view, but from a different angle. So instead of looking from the infrastructure perspective, you go through the species perspective. This page also houses some deeper dives, so interesting articles or links. And again, a link to any projects with features, also oysters or the species you've selected. Okay, let's go back to the visual. Because we have one button left, which is the monitoring button. This is the one we've added last. And we are also planning in the coming year to build upon this and make it a little bit bigger. For now, I will show you what we have so far. So this page is really all about monitoring. Of course, you always want to monitor your nature enhancement projects, but monitoring in offshore conditions is always a challenge. So next to some general information, this page offers examples of monitoring methods that we used or have been used in the projects that are featured in the toolbox. You can scroll through some of these options, and there's also some really simple comparison between these. And then, of course, in the end, we also have the link again to the projects pages, which I'll end with, actually. So I will not go there now. So just to have a first idea of what is actually possible in the offshore environment. Okay, everyone's still here? I hope so, because I can't see you. I hope you're all still awake. I will actually end with the projects page. So I will skip that for now, and I will go to our practical information page. And we'll click on it from here. For now, the practical information is divided in 3 sections. But what is really cool about the design of the toolbox, it's that it's made to be adjustable and it's made to be expanded upon. So we've made a start with this, but depending on the needs of the users, so you, we can always expand on certain things, add certain objects or certain pages, and we can really offer you what you want to see. But for now, it's divided into 3 sections: a page on rules and regulations, a page on suppliers, and a page with links to other websites. In the first section, so the regulations section, you can find information on legislation. Because we are based in the Netherlands, it starts with the Dutch legislation. But we also have a page on international legislation with links to relevant documents, for example. And it also offers information, for example, on insurances and trainings and certificates that you need to actually work in offshore wind farms. For some of these, so for example, for insurance, we have added a guide. So if I click on this, it opens a PDF. And you can actually scroll through this to find more information about insurances. Let me see if I can actually go back now. There we go. And then make my screen big again. Yeah. Can you still see my my screen? I hope so. Okay. Then we can go to the suppliers page. And here you can find more information on where to find, for example, appropriate vessels if you want to work in an offshore wind farm, or maybe you want to work with flat oysters. Where can you buy them? What do you have to think about? And we are also working on a page for the monitoring services. And once again, here as well, if you want to dive deeper in any of these topics, you can open or click on the link and open a PDF for more information. And then the last page is actually just a page with links, because what is very important about the toolbox is that the toolbox doesn't want to be something which already exists. So if we can send you to the right place, we will definitely gladly do so. So if you feel your website or any website that you use a lot needs to be here in these links, please send us an email, let us know, and we will put it in here. Okay. Once again, if you have any questions, please note them down and we'll have time for those later. For now, I will go into the projects page. When you click on the button, it will actually lead you to our interactive map. And the map automatically zooms in on the Dutch North Sea. But please note that you can also zoom out. It's actually a world map, so if I zoom out, it needs a little bit of time to load. You can see that there are more projects there as well. Here in the US, there are a few, and here at the Canary Islands as well, which Phil will talk about later, of course. But because most of the projects in the toolbox now are centered in the Dutch North Sea, I will zoom to these to start with. On the map, you find different icons which represent the single project. And if you click on a project like this, you get a little pop-up with a summary of the project and also the partners in the project. If you want to learn more about this project, you can actually click on it and you will go to a project page. The project page offers general information on the project. So for example, on this side, you see project dates, location, project lead, partners, but also target species if it has them. And if I go down further, there's a box here which offers the methods used, results if there are any already, and of course, the tips and tricks which we find so important, where you can also share things that don't work, things that you think are very relevant, but you wouldn't put into a scientific paper. All of these things can have a place here. Also, please note that if you want to add things like reports, videos, anything like that, links to other websites, there's space here on the side, which this project, as an example project, doesn't have. But you can click on the download or review button, and it'll open up a new page for you. If I go down a little bit, we have a place for partners with links to their specific websites. There's also a place to put videos here, for example. And then you also have a link to the products used in this project. So again, this is just a product card from the library that I showed you earlier. And then, of course, a contact button for if you want to have more information about this project. I will go back to the project page. If we go back to the map, you can find the projects also underneath the map. So if I scroll down a little bit, here are all the projects. You can scroll through them if you don't want to use the map. And a disclaimer here that these, of course, are not only the Rich North Sea projects, but these are all kinds of really cool, inspiring projects from around the world for nature enhancement in offshore wind farms. So please add your own project to this page as well, because we really want to show what's possible to inspire people to, in the end, make their own nature enhancement projects. And for this, we also made a tutorial video. Here is a add project button, but if we have time, I would love to show this video to give you a guide on how to add your own project. I will stop sharing my screen now
Thank you so much, Ellen. So
You're welcome.
well, we are starting to share the video. Just a couple of questions, if I may. Like, how many Give or Tricks projects do you have within the toolbox already included?
Right now, how many projects we have in the toolbox?
Mhm.
I haven't counted them actually, but I think we have around 15. So
Okay.
rough count, it might be a little bit less.
Yeah.
But we are very, very keen on adding more projects to it. So if anyone thinks, okay, I have this really cool project going on in an offshore wind farm, please let us know and we'll add it. And when I say offshore wind farm, I also mean cables. So if you have a project outside an offshore wind farm, but for example, on a cable crossing or near to a platform, these are also more than welcome.
Yeah, great. And this is really amazing to see because you have like really a huge collection of things. You have from products to monitoring actions, like projects is really, really, really amazing. And I understand that a lot of people have been asking for a tutorial, correct?
Yes. Yeah, correct. Because we've been saying, please add your project. And then they say, we don't know how. So we made this tutorial and we can send you also a link later on. It's not yet online because it's brand new, but we'll share, of course, later if you're interested.
Exactly. So this is what we're going to be sharing today, just as a preview, and then the link is going to be available later on. Is it okay, the screen? Great. Nope, sorry, this is not it. Coming.
In this video, we will explain how easy it is to add your project to the Toolbox. Go to the Toolbox webpage and click on the Project button in the menu. An interactive map opens where you can see all the projects presently in the Toolbox. Click on the Add Project button in the top left corner. Make sure your project fits all the criteria mentioned. We also welcome projects outside the North Sea basin to the Toolbox, so Criteria 2 is not a deal breaker. The map is interactive and you can drag and zoom in or out to get to the location. It doesn't have to be the exact GPS coordinates. Just click on the area of your project. Once you have selected the location, click on Next and fill in the project details. Only the marked fields are required, but please fill in the form as completely as possible. After completing the form, click Next. This is where you fill in the info about you and your organisation. Complete your project application by clicking on Send Your Reaction. After submitting the application, the Rich North Sea receives your project details. If your project fits all the criteria, we will reach out to you and send you a questionnaire. We can go over this together in an online meeting, or you can answer the questions by yourself. In the form, you can add photos, videos, documents, and as many details about your project as possible. Take your time and make sure your project appears in the toolbox with as much relevant information as possible. The final step is to check all your information, documents and links. We will then add your project to the toolbox on the right location and with an icon matching the category. From now on, everyone can see your project details and be inspired by the information you provided. If you have any questions, please get in touch. We are happy to help you.
Beautiful, very useful. So the link is going to be available in the YouTube channel at the Rich North Sea Toolbox, and also whenever available, we can also share it via our own channels, RGI and Ocean.
In this video,
I'm sorry, this is going again. So thank you very much, Aline. If everyone marks some questions, we will have some time for a Q&A at the end. But before that, we will go deep into one of the projects that is now included in the toolbox. So I'm going to pass the floor to Phil LeBlanc, director at Concrete, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the projects and the organization, but also how they integrated their own projects into the newly launched toolbox. So please, Phil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Denis. Thanks for the invitation. We're thrilled to be part of today's discussion. Super important work. It's a pleasure to share the floor with Eileen. It's great to see how far along the toolbox have come. So we're very proud to have played a role in introducing our project. I'll be actually highlighting 3 projects today that we have included in the toolbox. We recorded a small video that shows us kind of scrolling through these projects. But perhaps I can give quickly, before getting into that, a quick introduction about who we are, eConcrete. We are an eco-engineering company developing nature-inclusive design solutions for coastal and offshore application. We're designing solutions that enable offshore wind developers to optimize the design of cable and scour protection infrastructure to promote marine biodiversity. So we're focusing on developing structural solutions. And the project I'll be highlighting today focus on the application of these solutions in the context of offshore and subsea project. One of the first projects we're going to be, actually, I was trying to control a slide. You have control. So the first project I'll be talking about is our collaboration with Electrica, who is the Spanish transmission system operators. As part of their commitment to sustainability and to limiting the impact of their project, they selected eConcrete for the design of a nature-inclusive cable protection solution, which I was showing here on the slide. We've demonstrated with Red Electrica that we enable the restoration of a reef habitat as part of the cable protection project. So I'll talk about this project. Next, we'll be highlighting a project in the USA where our nature-inclusive marine mattresses was selected as a mitigation solution in the context of the project. And finally, I'll be talking about our scour protection solution, which we develop again as an alternative to traditional methods of scour protection. We'll be going into the details of the piloting details for this project and sharing some of the results. So what on the next slide, what these 3 projects, what they have in common is our concrete bioenhancing technology. So we're able with our technology to design specific solution for offshore and subsea. We are at eConcrete a multidisciplinary company, so we have a team of biologists, team of engineers, and designers. So it's important to mix those 3 when we design nature-inclusive design solutions. So our biologists make sure that our solution meets the biodiversity enhancement criteria for nature-inclusive design. Our engineer makes sure that our solution meets the hydraulic stability requirements and engineering requirements, and our designer makes sure that we're flexible in designing tailored solution that fix the operational and engineering context of project. So Denis, I think you have access to the video that we can play where I'll be walking through the toolbox and highlighting how we're leveraging this amazing tool to share our lesson learned.
Coming right up.
Thank you.
eConcrete is glad to join today's discussion around the mapping of nature-inclusive design solutions. We're proud to contribute to the important work of the Rich North Sea to showcase solutions that supports nature-inclusive development of offshore wind and grids. We believe the Toolbox is a great platform to share results and also lessons learned from projects where solutions were successfully deployed to enhance and restore marine biodiversity. We selected 3 projects for inclusion in the Toolbox, which we will be covering during today's webinar, as part of today's webinar. These projects illustrate our approach at eConcrete to provide the offshore wind and grid industry with nature-inclusive alternatives to traditional methods of cable and scour protection. The first project we included in the Toolbox showcased our collaboration with Red Electrica, where eConcrete technology was selected for the design of a nature-inclusive cable protection solution. The unique eco-engineering challenge for this project required meeting the engineering needs of securing a subsea cable in a trench, but also at the same time restoring reef habitats to promote marine biodiversity. So in this context, the Toolbox really provides us with a great platform to provide more context about this project, about this approach to eco-engineering of a cable protection. There's in the method section allows us to provide more details about how the project was built. We have an opportunity to the result tab to share the results from the biological monitoring. We have a section here where we can share a lesson learned from the project. We have included different resources here, for example, a short video to take the viewer on a dive to see, to watch how the e-concrete trench block integrate with the marine environment to enable the restoration of the reef habitat and marine and the associated marine biodiversity. More importantly, we included here a link to a nature-inclusive design webinar, also hosted by the Renewable Grid Initiative, where Red Electrica and e-concrete discussed in great length the challenge and opportunity and learning from the project. We're listing here the different partners who made this project possible. This was really a collaborative approach where we brought together different expertise from different partners. We also provide more information about the product itself for potential use in the context of the project for cable protection in a trench. Worth highlighting that in the results section, we also included a link to a recent case study where we provide preliminary biodiversity results from the biological monitoring 21 months post installation. Here we highlight great results demonstrating how we were able to restore the reef habitat and associated marine. The second project we included in the toolbox is our collaboration with Vineyard Wind 1, which is an 800 megawatt offshore wind project in the US. What's special about this project, standard concrete mattresses were not permitted, whereas e-concrete mattresses were allowed due to their unique nature-inclusive design and mitigation benefits. So our solution was deployed in the context of the platform, the toolbox, to provide more information about the project, more context. We provide details of the methods about how the project was built. We provide information about the permit, specific permit requirement for this project. We share information about the preliminary result. We highlight here the importance of also conducting physical modeling tests to also validate the hydraulic stability performance of the solution. We provide links to a case study to provide more information about the project. Again, other resources here, for example, we are again taking the viewer on a dive to witness the impact on the marine environment of using a nature-inclusive design. This is 1 year after installation. We conducted a preliminary visual monitoring, and here we can see the marine mattresses densely covered by diverse marine life, so thriving ecosystem on the cable protection structure. So great results that highlight that it's possible to at the same time meet the engineering requirements for cable protection, but also create opportunity for biodiversity enhancement. Here we're highlighting again the key partners who made this project possible and providing more information about the product itself, the nature-inclusive marine mattress of e-concrete. We have the third project that we have included, talks about our scar protection solution, a unit that we have developed as a replacement to rock in the context of scar protection or as complementary to rock. So here the platform of the toolbox allows us to provide more details about the piloting of and the development of this solution. We provide a lot of details about the methods and the result. So this is a project that we've launched in 2022, where we deploy over 4,000 of our units and also rock material for comparison at an offshore test. We provide a lot of information about the different technique, the monitoring protocol, which include environmental DNA, high-resolution multi-beam mapping, finfish habitat, and community modeling. So we provide a lot of details about that approach. We provide also details about in parallel, the fact that we're conducting physical modeling tests to also validate the hydraulic stability of our nature inclusive scale protection solution. We also provide details of the results. So we have obtained results from the initial biological monitoring about these positive results, which highlight that our scale protection system enhance habitat potential for local species and also improve the biological function of the structure and its surrounding, increasing the overall biodiversity compared to the control site. We have nice photo here of different species thriving in the scale protection system. We provided, again, the product itself. Conducting physical modeling tests to provide parameters for optimization and future specification of the solution in the context of project, which is needed for scalability. So these were the three projects that so far we have highlighted. We very much enjoy the practical approach of the toolbox. I believe it creates very unique opportunity to showcase the scalability and applicability of nature inclusive design solution for future offshore project development. We believe the toolbox will play a critical role to encourage the scale up of nature inclusive design solution by enabling the sharing of experience and validation results. So again, we're proud to be part of this important work by the Rich North Sea, and we'll continue providing more information about our projects, our solution, as we continue building up on this great work. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Danny. I think there was some moments where we couldn't hear, but I think our message came across. Again, it was a real pleasure to collaborate with the Rich North Sea to promote our project and promote their important work. So we try to capture with these three projects what we believe it's critical for the scale up of nature inclusive design in the context of offshore and subsea. So the focusing on validating the biodiversity enhancement capabilities of the solution, so doing biological monitoring, but also at the same time validating for hydraulic stability. So to enable the solution to be scaled. Here on this slide, we're just highlighting kind of our core technology, which enables us to design different solutions, structural solution. This technology allows us also to work locally with local producer. So all our solution are produced locally, leveraging local material. So this idea of which is very important for us to enable local supply chain to provide nature inclusive design alternative to traditional methods of building offshore wind farm in the subsea grid. So that's our contribution to the toolbox. Again, we're going to continue providing more information of our project as we get more results, and we'll be looking forward to collaborating with Aline and team in the future.
Thanks a lot, Phil, and thanks a lot for also mentioning the webinar on that you had together with Red Eléctrica. This is really useful. We have a webinar series, so there we're really deep down into we do a deep dive into the practice itself, and it's really amazing. I'm actually just as a first question, how long it took you to put all of this information together and upload all of this information into the toolbox?
It's a streamlined process. I mean, it's the matter of having the information available, obviously, but I think it's really easy to upload the information. It's a pleasure to work with Aline and team. So they have a great team that help innovators upload their information. So it was a fairly streamlined process. Yeah.
Okay, very good to know. That starts a little bit, that's the teaser for our Q&A session. We have a few more slides from your side. We are running out of time. Could we maybe just go through them rather quickly? If you want to point out some of the elements of the project, I can go through them, and then you can let us know if there's something that you would like to highlight.
Yeah, sure. I think, the last slide I have, you can scroll to them rather quickly. The idea was if you go to the next slide, to make the point that it's important to validate the biodiversity, the hydraulic stability. That's what we're showing here, that, you know, we've gone to the process of validating the solution, because I think more and more we're going to see non-price criteria included in offshore wind tenders. In that context, offshore wind developers are challenged to include biodiversity enhancement measures. So they need us innovator to provide them with the substantiation they need to design an innovative approach to the build out of offshore wind farm, meeting those requirements for permitting. So I think it's important to go to that validation, and I think that's why the work of Eileen and team at the Rich North Sea is so critical, right? Because we need to be able to share these ideas, to share these project results, to encourage the upscaling of the solution more and more, because I think we all have here the common goal to have a bigger impact on promoting and restoring marine biodiversity in the North Sea and beyond. So that's you can move to the next presentation. Those slides were there to make that point.
Excellent. So the next session is actually the Q&A. So I hope that you have all written down your questions for Eileen and for Phil. But then let's just start with the last point that you mentioned, Phil, projects in the northern, the Baltic Seas and beyond. When it comes to beyond, Eileen, can we actually include projects from everywhere in the world? Is this something that it's open for everyone? I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see everyone's faces and the hands raised.
Yes. While you're doing that, yes, definitely. So the Toolbox was born from a North Sea perspective, and that's where we started. But I think we can all learn a lot from each other. And I think a lot of the basic principles for nature restoration, for reef restoration and enhancement, they can be practiced all around the world. So even if you have a really cool, I don't know, coral restoration project in Australia, we might still learn from that. So yes, please add your project. And it's a world map. As I said before, you might not see it in one go, so you have to zoom and scroll a little bit. But yeah, we're very, very willing to add those as well.
Yeah, very, very good to know. So while I go through some of the questions that are in the chat, I will start reading them. Or, of course, feel free to raise your hand and ask your question yourself. But maybe could you tell us a little bit more about the requirements to actually include a project? For example, if the project needs to be already implemented, if it needs to be related with offshore wind or solar infrastructure, what can be included? What can not be included? Can oil and gas projects can be included, for example? Maybe a little bit of the requirements, and then I'll go through the questions.
Yeah. So for now, we have decided to only add projects which have a direct relation to offshore wind. So it's either inside an offshore wind farm or on a cable or anything like that around a platform. Or it can also be a project which experiments with products that are meant to be used in an offshore wind farm. So for example, we have added our offshore test site. This is not in an offshore wind farm, but all the products that we are testing in this test site are meant to be used in offshore wind farms at some point. So that makes it relevant for the Toolbox as well to add to it. We don't want to use or go outside of that scope for now. We might go outside of it in a later point in time. But for now, we want it to be related to offshore wind in this case. Beyond that, we were also looking at things, for example, like mitigation options. We are also working on a project which will include mitigation options into the Toolbox as well. But they are all of them physical mitigation options. So things that you can actually see in the water, so practical things. So as an example, maybe the shape of a wind turbine, for example, or anything you can physically add to the structure. That would be a requirement. We can also add projects which are not in the water, but we will not put them on the map for now. We have to think about maybe adding another layer or something like that, but that's right now not an option. So for now, if you have a related project which doesn't have a practical aspect, we can add it to the practical information page as a link. So in that way, you can still add the project, but it will not have a project page.
Okay, that's clear. Thanks a lot for the clarifications. Seeing one of the questions in the chat that I also had that in my list actually, what is the management plan for the toolbox in terms of in the long term? If there's any updates, if there's any changes, if a project doesn't work, what's happened? What is the plan for that?
So for now, we will be the main coordinator in this. So if your project is online and something changes, we will be the gatekeeper. But we will not scroll through every project every month to see if there's any updates. So that's up to the project owner to inform us about this. And we can then change it in the toolbox. In the future, we are looking to put the toolbox under the Dutch government for upkeeping. And we are actually talking to them about this now. And this would mean a very long-term, upkeep of the toolbox. And then I'm talking about at least until 2030 and maybe even longer. And the idea is to keep it as a sort of a living document, to have it be adjustable where needed. And then for now, we will be the gatekeeper. At some point, we might give this to the Dutch government to hand it over.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, of course, because of course that sometimes in 10 years or whatever happens from now on, we need to have a plan. I see another question here concerning a little bit the requirements. Someone is asking if a company can include a monitoring technique in the toolbox as well, if this is part of the things that can be inserted there.
Yeah, definitely. You cannot add it yourself, so we will have to do it for you. But if you have a really cool monitoring technique, then yes, contact me and we can just make a little block with your technique and add it to the toolbox.
Yeah, fantastic. So now instead of reading the chat, I'm going to call those that are actually raising questions, because I do understand that my internet connection is a little bit poor. So it's better if you ask the question yourself. So Sylvie Vevaus, could you maybe turn on your camera and ask your question? If you're there.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, you're saying about renewable energy, but what about coastal protection projects?
So for now, it's outside of the scope. Maybe in the future we will be able to add them, but if it's not directly related to an offshore wind or another offshore energy project, then yes, I'm sorry, then we don't have a place for it in the toolbox yet.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And then can Felix Gysi, could you turn on your camera and ask your question, please?
Yes, so thank you for the explanation. And what I see in the toolbox is a lot about scour zone protection and oyster reefs and those kind of things. But are there kind of things what you haven't seen yet, and kind of as the rich North Sea, you think, okay, that would also be a nice solution. So kind of encourage other people to upload a project in that direction.
Yes, we're really looking for soft substrate solutions. So far we've been really focusing on hard substrate and reef solutions, but it would be great to have a project on soft substrate in there as well. And we are also looking to expand towards floating offshore wind, because that's going to be quite large, especially outside of the Dutch North Sea, where it's going to be deeper, of course, where floating wind will be a lot bigger. So any projects that look at anchoring, for example, and things like that are also very much welcome.
Thanks.
There's a very interesting and challenging question here from Elena van der Leij that was earlier today. Could you maybe turn on your camera and ask your question? And then, Robert, I can see you. I can pass the word right after to you.
Yes. Hello, Elena. We already met in the past, and I had a chance to test your toolbox. And I see you are very often saying also today, please join the toolbox and so on. I'm working for other people on a little bit different project than wind farms. We are making a tidal kite. Still, we do the same monitoring. You know, the research we have to follow, it's exactly what the rest has to follow. We have no rules yet for our product because there is not such thing like tidal kite yet. So the best what we can do is follow the rest at this moment. So my question is for you, what is the profit for other companies to join your toolbox? Because for me, it's brilliant. I'm using your toolbox to get inspired and see how others are doing it. But what would be the profit for the company itself to join in this toolbox?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I got a similar question on a conference a few weeks ago where someone asked me, what is your business case? And I was like, well, we don't really have a financial business case for this. We just want to share. And that's also for the projects and the project owners that are part of the toolbox. It really is for sharing your knowledge and for sharing your ideas. And this can be a sort of an advertisement, of course, where you show your product and how it works. And if it works well, then people might be interested in using your products. But it's also just the case for in this case the North Sea, but outside of that as well. If we see something which is a success or a failure for nature enhancement, we just want to share this and not having to have people doing the same sort of project and fail again or finding out the same thing again that we already know.
Exactly.
So that's really what we're working towards. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does answer my question, absolutely. But I cannot make up my decision. Well, I cannot make decision myself if I can join the toolbox. I have to talk to, of course, people that are higher than me in the company, but I would love to be part of it. So let's see if I can manage that. Okay, thank
Would
you.
be great. Yeah, thanks, and good to see you, Elena.
Thank you.
Elena, maybe I was thinking that maybe Phil can complement this answer.
Yeah.
Phil, what was the motivation from Concrete to actually join the toolbox? Is there a business case from your side?
Well, I think, our motivation is really to inspire. We want to, of course, inspire other innovators that are developing nature-inclusive design solutions, so providing kind of lesson learned. We want to inspire developers and TSOs to see our solution and seek alignment, for potential project where we can help them meet requirement for biodiversity enhancement. So it's important for us to be able to share kind of the lesson learned, also the results, our approach in validating our solution. So I think it's a mix, but we want to be part of this community. We really believe as a company that this is where the industry needs to go. So we want to play our role, and being part of the toolbox is part of that.
Yeah, yes, nice. Thank you.
I hope that, Elena, that brings you a little bit of motivation.
Well, for me, there is a motivation, but there are people above me.
Yeah, I think I want to add a little bit more to this answer, because what we feel and what we've noticed so far is that a lot of companies are very willing to participate in this sort of thing. Even if I mean, we don't offer money for you to enter the toolbox, but you also don't have to pay us to enter the toolbox. It's all on a voluntary basis. But that's also what's happening with our projects, where everyone sees the need for nature enhancement in the offshore environment. And we also see results where it works. And that's just very motivating to share the results as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what you can create is the feeling that I already have is that the toolbox is so cool that I do want to be on your map. That can also help a bit to motivate. Yeah.
You can also send.
So good luck.
You can also send a link to this webinar to your colleagues so that they get more motivated.
Absolutely.
Good. Robert, to you now. You have your hand raised for a few minutes. Please go ahead.
No, and thank you. And I'm so sorry that I missed most of this presentation. Elena, I might reach out to you separately. And I just wanted to say thank you, I suppose, initially to yourself, the Rich North Sea. Standing on the shoulders of giants comes to mind, like what would other grid operators do without the really pioneering work that you're doing. My question was really more for you, Madly, about whether there is an appetite to have I suppose, quite an informal working group forum where developers who are actively working on nature inclusive design can get together and share. And some of that information they might share might be somewhat sensitive, but so like EirGrid has just completed its design risk assessment contract, and I have quite a lot of technical questions that I would be interested in sharing with other developers who are at a similar stage, maybe in that journey. It's just a suggestion if there was appetite from RGI to be able to facilitate that. And you know, it could be monthly, and maybe people don't have to attend. Obviously, it could be very informal, you know, but just somewhere where we can exchange knowledge and questions.
There is always appetite to sharing information and learnings and failures at RGI and at Ocean. So we're very happy to reach out to you bilaterally and follow up on that.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Good. I see some more hands raised, some others in the chat. So I will go for the ones that have the hands raised just because I know that my internet connection is not great. So I see Manon, please ask your question.
Yes, hi. So my name is Manon. I work as well at RGI with my colleague Denis, and I had a question for Eline. I saw on the first graphic that you shared a visual on nature enhancement that it was mostly for underwater species and measures. Do you also consider above water species measures? I'm not sure in the map if there was some types of project like this. Is it also in your scope?
Yes. So in the beginning, from the Rich North Sea perspective, we really started from underwater. But yes, we are open for above water projects as well. And again, as I told you before, we are part of a project which actually Denis will talk about later, the Knit for Ocean project, which will also look at projects which have above water components. But we did find it that it's more difficult to do nature enhancement above water. It's more logical to look under the water because we have a degraded reef ecosystem where we are really looking for enhancements and for restoration. Above the water, it's more of a habitat creation situation. And this, of course, right away starts the discussion of is this nature enhancement if you're creating habitat instead of restoring lost habitat. But we will also be looking, for example, at mitigational options above the water. So yes, if you have a project and it's actually nature enhancement, then you're more than welcome to share it. I'm also just very curious about the ideas that are living in this space, because so far I haven't seen any projects that focus on nature enhancement in offshore wind farm above the water.
If I may add to this very quickly, we actually, RGI is part of a new project that is called NID for Bird Life with Elia. And we will develop some nature inclusive design solution on the Princess Elizabeth Island walls for birches in order to increase the breeding spots of but the project is until 2030. So in the future, we will have great results, I'm sure. And we have a webinar very soon. RGI will organize a webinar very soon. I think Denis will talk about this in a few seconds. So stay tuned.
I would love to work together at some point. Yes.
More room for collaboration. Excellent. I saw a hand raised from Natalie, but then I think that Natalie.
Yes, hi. Sorry, yeah, I lowered my hand. I'm trying to turn on my camera. I don't know if it's working. So hi, Eline. We've met a few times already on a few conferences, so I was a bit familiar with the toolbox. Congratulations on all the work you did. It looks really cool, and I also hope that I can encourage IMDC management to be part of this toolbox. But I was just wondering, at IMDC we are developing this framework to really look at the ecosystem performance of all these nature inclusive design, nature enhancement tools. Is there also room on your platform for these kind of innovation projects where we look at frameworks or even a web tool to look at how your structure is actually adding to these wind farm projects offshore?
Yes, yeah, definitely. It sounds really cool also. I think the first step would be to create a link. If you already have a project page or anything, to create a link to your project. But I think it would also be a great opportunity when you actually have a tool like this to create a page in the toolbox so people can use it to embed it somehow. And then we could think about creating a page like the project pages, or like the page, for example, about monitoring or anything like that. And the cool thing about the toolbox is that it's as adjustable as it is. So we can just pick and choose the different things from the toolbox, like text boxes or the video components, or anything like that. And we can create our own space for this. So if it's, and I think this is a great example of a project and a tool that's straight related to our topic as well. So yes, then it would be great to look at how we can incorporate your project into the toolbox. Yeah.
Okay, so let's connect soon. I still have your contact information. And then thank you again for the presentation. Also, Denny, Phil, it was really interesting. Thank you for organizing.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining. So we have a couple of more questions. We have 2 more minutes for questions, and then we need to move on to a couple of other advertisement moments. George Solakis, would you like to ask your question? You have a very interesting point about baseline surveys.
Yes, can you hear me? Great. Thank you for the information shared. I'm located in Greece, so we are just start to scratching the surface, and I'm craving for information. So putting things in an order, we have to do with strategic environmental assessment here for offshore wind farms and site characterization and baseline surveys. So my question has to do with this, starting from the beginning, doing baseline surveys. Do we have something in the toolbox like references, people, partnerships, ideas that we can tap into and get the information? I would be eager as well to come in connection with people that can help us to have a greater insight for this.
Yeah, so it's you're looking for partners to do baseline monitoring with. Is that correct?
Actually, I'm working for a governmental organization, and our goal is to pave down the way for the development of offshore wind farms in the future. So right now we have to conclude with strategic environmental assessments and put forward planning for site characterization.
So in the beginning, when we were brainstorming about ideas, one of the ideas that we had to let go was having a part of the map, so another tab in the map, where we had this kind of basic baseline information, where we could also add it. Well, just because of time and budget restrictions, we didn't follow through with that. So we don't have it in the toolbox right now, and everything is pretty much project-based. So if you're interested in certain aspects that projects use, right now, I think the fastest step is to get in touch with the project lead and go through it in that direction. It is very useful information for me and for us to know that you're looking for this type of information, because we still have the ideas on paper. If there's more people who are very interested in this type of information, we can always think about how to present that in the toolbox as well. So if you feel like you need this information also for anyone else in the audience, let me know. And also be as precise in the information that you're looking for as you can. So if you're looking for just a summary of people who are doing certain monitoring, or are you looking for a map, or are you looking for biodiversity indicators or anything like that, then we can think about adding it to the toolbox as well. But for now, I think the fastest way is to work through the project.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay, we have a few more minutes. If someone has a question, please raise your hand, because now it's a little bit hard to know if I went through all the ones that are in the chat. I have two more questions, one for both of you, the other one.
I don't know if you can hear Denis, but for me, she's silent.
No, we lost you there, Denis. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, and now you're frozen.
Oh.
You're back.
I'm back. Okay, I'll check the
okay.
opportunity while I'm back. So I wanted to highlight the issue of the failures. So what has gone wrong with the toolbox? And maybe Phil, can you provide Eileen with a little bit of challenge or feedback? What was challenging when trying to put all the information?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we had a lot of ups and downs with creating the toolbox. One of the main things that we started out with is that we wanted to create sort of a library of knowledge. And that's what we started with. We created a library where we could put in, papers and reports and all these kinds of things. And while we were making that, we already had a website laid out and everything. It was ready to go online. And then we were like, well, no one is going to use this. They're just going to Google it and then they find it anyway. So we had to scratch the whole idea and start from zero. And then there's also things where people say, well, we already have something like this, right? And that's also where you can't know everything, and you can't know everything that's on the internet somewhere. And we don't want to make something that already exists. And that's very difficult because we have a really small team, and we have limited time and limited budget. So you have to do a very deep dive into what's available to know that you're not creating something that's already there. So we've been very dependent also on our partners, on interest stakeholders, and anyone who wants to participate to know that we're actually making something useful and making something that's not already in existence somewhere. And in the end, that's also what we're aiming for, to be as open about this as possible, to know people that we're not trying to take their space, that we're not trying to, if there's already something like this, we're not trying to take that from you. We're just trying to give people the information that they're craving and that they really want. So if there's something that's already there, we're so happy to send people your way. And I think that's also been one of the greatest challenges so far.
Yeah, I can imagine. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, and Phil, maybe would you like to add to that and provide some feedback? What was super hard? What would you improve from the user's perspective?
For us, it was a positive experience. Obviously, there's a lot of editing that goes into it. So there's what you want to put on the toolbox, but there's what the toolbox can highlight in terms of information. So there's a short space available for content. So from our end, we had to be careful what information we put out there. And also, you got to also manage what's proprietary about these projects, right? And about your business case, your technology. So I think it's just balancing, but I'm optimistic by default. But it was a really positive experience. I encourage anyone to upload their project. I think it's important.
Thanks.
Excellent. So only positive feedback. And Eileen, one more question in terms of censorship. Is there any filter of the information that practitioners insert? Is there any information that should not be shared? Is there any information that needs to be edited? And how do you make sure that everything that is included there, it's scientifically proof, that is kind of like true to their statement, because otherwise it can be very easily advertised. That I think that this is one of the things trying to be careful. Could you maybe elaborate on this?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And it's also one of the most difficult things to ensure, that what we are putting online is actually the truth, right? So who is fact checking everything? And on this, we are relying on the input of the project leads. So if we ask someone to put in their projects, we can't fact check everything. So we do rely on the projects in this quite a lot, actually. And this means we can make mistakes. And that also, again, is a cry out for the community that if you see something like this happen, let us know. Because, I mean, we will be the gatekeeper and we will keep a close eye on everything that goes online. You won't be able to put anything online yourself. So there will always be a step from us where we edit everything and you know, look through the text. But if there can always be, or mistakes can always creep in that we haven't noticed. So we will do our best, but there's no guarantee that we never make a mistake with this.
And if I can add to that, Denny, I mean, it was a really rigorous process for us to include the information. Eileen and team were challenging us on some of the facts we wanted to include. So, you know, we had to provide information about the monitoring protocols and, you know, explanation about the results that we're sharing. So it's a very rigorous process, and it should be, you know, to Eileen's point.
Yes, and what we also wanted from the beginning, and that's also one of the mistakes we made at first. In the beginning, we said, well, everyone that has a really cool product, so for example, cable protection structure or an artificial reef, everyone can be part of the library of the toolbox. But then we found out that we were going to be sort of an Amazon, right? Where people can just advertise everything that they own without having a scientific or a practical proof of it actually working. And that's also when we decided to only feature the products that have a project page, so which can be dove into and see the results as well, where it's already been in the water and we're looking at something that's been used somewhere.
Yeah, fantastic. It's very well thought through. There's a lot of work in it. There's a lot of information. So now we will have a poll, before we close. Before we had the poll about if you knew this, and this is now that you actually know the toolbox and you got the introduction, would you be interested to explore it and to use the project pages? This is the first question. And the second question would be if you're interested in including your project. And if yes, of course, you have to reach out to Eileen and her team, but we would like to know a little bit a yes and no answer from the audience. Please, it would be great if you start filling in the poll while I start resharing my screen. Okay, so the answers will start coming up little by little. They're coming. And while they're coming, I'm going to follow up with a couple of advertisement elements. So first of all, we were talking about knowledge.
We lost the knee again.
Is it better now?
You're back, Denny. But
Okay, you're back.
We miss your point.
Yeah, I think that this is happening. Probably, I hope that the screen is not frozen in a weird phase because it always happens. But what I wanted to mention now is that knowledge sharing is what ocean is about, both in the Northern Baltic Seas and also in the Med and the Atlantic. And in ocean, we also have two databases that are a little bit different from Eileen's toolbox because they have a different purpose. And on these ones, we have mitigation measures, we have avoidance measures. This is one database. And the other database is on nature enhancement. So for the enhancements part, there's a few similarities, but it's really only about showcase the project, not about practical information. And there we also have now the 3 projects concrete included. So congratulations that you get included now, but we also have restoration projects. So these are the ones that one of the previous questions was about this, and we do include them here. So these are the databases. Our colleagues are going to be sharing the links. Please have a look and let us know if you would like to showcase your project there as well. Now I can see already in the poll that I think that a lot of people, most of the people, 93% of the people are interested in looking at the website. Others are uncertain, and a very small amount, no, just 2%. And in terms of including the project, 70% they would say yes, 28% they are uncertain, and a very small percent they said no, only 3%. So very, very, very good results. Now, before I let you go for today, if you are in the nature inclusive design webinar business, not webinar, only solutions business, we wanted to advertise a couple of things. RGI, but also the North Sea Foundation, and in collaboration with a project that is called NID for Oceans. And in the context of this European funded project, we have an open challenge on nature inclusive design solutions. So this is just a teaser. I am not going to expand a lot of information on this. There is no link yet. The opening of this challenge is going to be, I think, available in March or May in Q2. But for now, I just wanted to mention that there's a challenge coming up. This is going to be focused on moorings, floaters, turbine foundations, cable protection, in general, floating offshore wind infrastructure. Is going to be available for SMEs and NGOs. And the idea is that the projects are going to be presented and awarded at the Wind Europe conference in 2026 in Madrid. So this is the basic information for now. Of course, the slides are going to be available on our website. So please feel free to have a look, and then you can follow us on the different channels to know more about this challenge. Now, last but not least, we do have webinar series on nature and inclusive designs. So the next webinar on NID is going to be about the ILIA project, Need for Oceans, that is in collaboration with the ILIA group and with 2 other consortium partners, going to be in May. And RGI and Ocean have different webinars. Another webinar within the Ocean Coalition is about regulatory frameworks, and this is going to happen the date, is going to happen on the 27th of March. So next month, if you're interested about the regulatory framework offshore in France, please join the webinar. And as always, the webinars are always recorded and available on our website. Excellent. So these are the QR codes for our newsletter and for our website. Our colleagues are also going to share them right now. And we will send a short survey after the webinar just to understand what can we do better, your feedback, positive and negative.
We lost you, Denny, at feedback. It appears like you muted, I think now.
Sorry again, I think that there's an internet connection again. So I was just saying thank you, Eileen and Phil, for joining the webinar. It was amazing to have you and to host you today. Congratulations for the Rich North Sea program, and congratulations, Phil, for all the projects that you're doing and for including your projects in the toolbox. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the webinar as much as I did. And see you soon in one of our next sessions.
Thank you so much, Denny.
Thank you, Denny. It was a pleasure. Bye.